You guys, we're back on the AFS Health and Care podcast, and I'm pumped to have an original face here. Now, some of you, if you're watching this, you're going to know this face from back in 2017, 16?
Yeah, I think it was 16, from 16 to 20, yeah, about 4 years.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I'm going to share a story about when you first came on in the food blog you gave me.
Great, here we go.
Well, you guys, Adam Spears was an original member here back in the day. He was on board with us for 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
This is when we had our Plymouth and Rochester location.
Yep.
Adam came on to do community outreach and business development to help those communities expand. He now serves people on the financial health front, which we're going to talk about in a second. I wanted Adam to come on because, you know, we serve a very similar population in different ways. You know, obviously here at AFS, we focus on physical health.
Yeah.
And Adam has helped people on their financial well-being, which, believe it or not, there is a lot of ties to overall like health and well-being on the two fronts that we'll unpack here first. But context here, you guys, Adam. So this is back when I was actually, we were called practitioners back in the day.
Yeah.
Now we're called exercise physiologists. A lot of the same focus, but Adam came on and we wanted to give him the whole experience.
Yep.
So I took Adam through the assessment. We set goals. The fact this is the time when like we were looking at food documentation. Totally out of scope for us.
Yeah.
But Adam sent me his first food log. This is on paper.
On paper, yeah. We had to write them down.
We had to write
food
it down.
logs.
Wrote it down, and then to the right corner of the paper, there was, he documented, you know, there was some kind of brownie that he documented, but then there was actually the brownie thumb stain on the paper.
I wanted it to be as real as possible.
There was no
brownie stains on my food log. There was no hiding it. It was just me raw right there. Yeah. It took me through the whole assessment. And then, you and I, before this remodel, the next corridor over, the worst thing that anybody could ever do was put us in an office across from one another. I mean, it's like, I look back and it's like, you know, in first grade where you had to be separated and like you couldn't sit next to your best friend because you're just cracking up the whole time.
Well, we didn't get anything done.
We didn't get a lot.
Poor Chris.
Done.
Chris was back there too. Just distracted.
Poor Chris. Yeah, those are the initial days when I came on for like onboarding, you know, new clients and stuff like that. And then I developed and moved into that corporate wellness business development role. But glory days. Yeah, I look back in that, it's just one of the best, most fun times of my life. I mean, even if you hadn't been there, it still would have been, but no, it was great. And again, I mean, I learned so much. I had known that I wanted to be in the fitness world at that point in my life. I had no idea what that meant. Mm-hmm. And, being here, there was no better experience to learn about that. Just from, AFS's overall approach, being more science-based, being more relationship-based, not being just kind of this, big box where you're just a face that walks in and nobody knows you. It was, like I said, it was the best way that I could possibly learn, and then it just became about what is the best way that I could serve, not coming from a fitness world. That's and it was about developing business relationships.
Well, you're helping a lot of people still now today in the health wheel. So give people up to speed on what you're doing now. How are you helping people now?
Yeah, so I am a financial advisor. So I came on with a firm 3 years ago, and their approach was one of, it's very different than kind of a typical financial advising approach. And I attribute a lot to what they do, kind of similar to what AFS does, right? Reaching at the core of kind of what are the issues, what are the problems. And in my world, looking at someone's retirement, there's all these things that change, right? Like kind of in the beginning of your life from a fitness perspective, there's a lot of these things that you can achieve, that you can focus on, or that you'll get to, right? And that's kind of in this beginning phase of your life when you're younger. In the financial world, it's the same, right? It's, during your working years, it's about growth and accumulation, right? Hey, am I growing my money and saving enough money so that I can someday retire? But then there's this mindset shift that needs to take place. And it's very, very difficult for people. And what happens is, all right, I've spent 40 years or 45 years of my life just focused on this one thing. Now the accumulation phase is ending. Now it's about growth, tax strategy, and solving your income equation, meaning, hey, where is my money going to come from is it the most tax efficient sources that I'm getting it from? And how do I balance that equation? Because what I focus on for retirees is during your working years, and you know this as well as I do, your money is all coming in and all being taxed one way, right? If you're a W-2 employee, it's all under these federal income tax brackets, right? It's all taxed the same way. In retirement, you get to choose, right? Hey, I want to take a little bit from here and a little bit from here and a little bit from here. And there's different tax rates on all those different sources of income. So essentially, you can choose based on these sources of income how you structure it. And so what I've found is that, you could live on, 80 to 100% of what you're living on during your working years and actually pay less in taxes. So that's kind of our focus, right? It's the root of what I do for people because it is this forgotten element. And it's very similar to what you guys do, right? Everybody knows that, hey, I should go work out, right? Or, hey, I should save, or, hey, I have enough, or I'm physically able. But there's all these underlying things that, are you doing it as efficiently as possible? Does your diet match your exercise plan? Does, what you're capable of? Are we crafting a plan around that and then changing it over time based on these new factors, right? So the worlds are very similar. And, kind of telling everybody the reason why I'm here and what Kemper and I talked about was that there is quite a bit of overlap in our worlds, not just from the demographics that we serve, right, which you serve a very similar age demographic.
Yeah, let me actually share insight on that.
Yeah.
Because we did this we did this survey to our membership last summer.
Yeah.
2/3 of our membership right now are late 50s to early 60s.
Yep.
Which is right in that sweet spot of probably people that are thinking about what you do.
Pre-retirement, mid-retirement. I mean, I would say that the core demographic of the people that make up my client base are probably 55 to 75. That's the core demographic. So literally the same. And again, we're serving them on two different fronts, but that's what you and I found was that those two worlds overlap quite a bit. And, we'll talk about it, but there's so many studies that have been done around financial well-being ultimately leading to longevity and health and, later in life. But, I've talked enough about myself. I can talk about myself all day.
Well, that's why I got to keep doing what I do. I want to get your reaction to this.
Actually, I absolutely hate talking about myself. But
you would never know, you guys. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, there's a wealth. I want to get your reaction to this. So the way I view, and I talk about this with our members here, and our team does, there is such a high ROI when you start focusing on your health, physical health, mental health. We'll just use physical health right now for the context of what we do. When you start earlier. So meaning if you start to prioritize movement and regular exercise when you're 30 relative to when you're like 55, 80-year-old version of you is going to be in much better shape if you start 30. Like literally, so there's this like kind of...
It's so crazy the way that overlaps, right? Because I will tell people this when I do so many speaking engagements throughout the year. Just educating, right? I mean, I teach courses at Schoolcraft at Madonna, like just overall retirement courses. And it's funny you bring that up because there's a corny line that I use, but it holds true to my profession and yours, which is, the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The second best time is today, right? And I mean, again, that holds true when it comes to retirement planning. It holds true when it comes to your physical health. And again, obviously I keep close ties to what you're doing and what you guys are doing over here. And I've seen all the things that you post where it's like, and I'm going to bastardize this, but, it's not going from stagnant to working out 5 days a week. Right. It's just that little bit of walking, physical, like getting started, just, the leaps and bounds that it takes from being stagnant to actually just doing something like walking. It's the exact same thing in my profession, right? And it ties true where people are like, well, I feel like I've been living check to check. I don't think that there's room to save. I don't think there's room to do this. And I'm sure you get those excuses too. Hey, you know what? I'm busy. I work all the time. I don't think that I have time to, walk or do whatever. And I'm like, you would be surprised, right? Starting small, like understanding the hours in your day or understanding the pennies that you spend, starting from there, and then realizing, hey, there actually is money left over or there is time to do it, right?
So when should, I know you mentioned you work with people in their 55 to 75, that's a little bit of a range. When should people come talk to you? Is it in that pre-retirement phase or?
No, I mean, I say just like you, the earlier the better. I mean, right at this point, I have, I don't know, I think it's 100 and 115, 116 households that I, manage assets for. And at this point, like I'm now bringing on and talking to my clients' kids, right? People in their 20s, late 20s, early 30s that are like, hey, what do I do so I don't make the same mistakes that my parents did? And some of that is not even about just starting early, because a lot of their parents started early, but it's about, hey, what vehicles should I use to save? Okay, right? So, hey, if I have X amount, right? If 10% of my salary is what I'm going to save, what bucket should that go in? And it's a different conversation for people that are earlier, similar to you, right? It's a different conversation of what you have the capacity to do. Because a lot of times when I'm talking to people that are in that earlier phase of life, they haven't had these liquidity events, right? Maybe they haven't had their first kid. Maybe they haven't bought their first house. Those are equally as important to save for as much as your retirement is. But again, what pots, where does that money go, right? It's a different conversation, but it's equally as important. And that's why I bring up that corny line of, best time to start was 30 years ago. So it's, does that make up my typical clientele? No, but is it as important for me to educate them so that, again, they don't make the same mistakes as their parents as far as, hey, I put everything into this pot or everything into this pot and now we're dealing with tax issues much later on? Yeah, 100%. The sooner the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish that we could get ahead of that curve, but probably much like you, most people that come in here right now, they are in a state of, they're not 30.
Right.
They're late 50s, early 60s. And they're coming because they kind of they're in some pain.
Yeah.
Like whether it's physical pain, like a knee or a hip or whatever.
Yeah, they got a pre-diabetic diagnosis.
Right.
Like I know that's far more commonplace.
More times than not, it is a reactionary
right.
action that's being taken place. Which is totally fine. There's still listen, you should come take control of your health, whether you're 60 or 30, there's still room to make improvement on. But for you, if somebody's coming in 55, 60, the pre-retirement phase, and they're like, hey, I've got probably another 5 years, 6 years until I'm going to retire.
Yep.
What does that process look like with you?
So, one, it's about evaluating the overall situation. And again, I even doing this and you and I talking prior to this about, what are our topics going to be, even sitting here right now, I'm realizing more and more how much of an overlap there is in the way that you and I plan in these different areas, right? So, some of it could be, hey, maybe you did start really young. Maybe you have saved a tremendous amount of money up to this point and you still want to work for another 5 or 10 years, right? You're 55 and you're like, hey, I don't plan on retiring until I'm 65. Then it becomes about, all right, are there things that you could do now to set yourself up better in retirement, right? And that's where in my practice, I will find a way to bring every conversation to circle it back around to taxes. Like it's just such a forgotten element of retirement planning. Most people are used to going and meeting their advisor once a year and them showing them, hey, look, this is the return I got you, right? Great. And during your accumulation phase, probably fine, right? It's all about growth. Hey, push the pedal to the metal, try to grow your assets, based on your risk tolerances as much as you can. But there are things that we can do now as far as, all right, maybe you are too heavily weighted in pre-tax money, meaning you've historically saved in just IRAs or 401ks or 403bs. With that comes a certain degree of you're going to lose control at a certain age, right? Most people, and you probably don't know this because you're too young, most people aren't aware of something called an RMD. It's a required minimum distribution. If you're over 70, you probably know what this is. So when you save historically in a 401k or in an IRA or in a pre-tax account, right, those tax-deferred accounts, at a certain point, the government comes along and says, hey, at this specific age, you have to take out a specific percentage, like of the total account value, right? Well, and you know this as well as I do, at age 75, life slows down. Now, there are outliers. You've met my dad. There are outliers to that.
But no slowing down there.
No, he's not slowing down. But again, I can show you the aggregate data of spending slows way down, right? Yeah. Around that age, there's very little to no debt. There aren't, kids that are still on payroll, right? There's just life slows down physically, and again, there just isn't as much cash outflow. Well, the government knows this too. So they know that, hey, if the demand, the income demand is slowing down, and this pot that they're pulling from, they're drawing less, while the government's tax revenue is slowing down, right? They're not getting as much taxes.
Right.
So they come along and say, hey, at a specific age, you have to take what's called a required minimum distribution. And it's just based on your total account value. And at age 75, it's about 4.07% of the total account value.
That you have to distribute.
You have to take as income, and you're taxed on that. And what if you don't need that money? What if at that stage life has slowed down and your Social Security, or maybe you're one of the lucky few that still has a pension? Between those two income sources, all your income demands are being met. Now the government tells you have to take more than what you need. Well, there's tax implications to that. Not to mention, we get into Medicare, right? There's Medicare income thresholds, whereas if you have too much income, the cost of your monthly Medicare premiums go up. They're called IRMAA thresholds, right? And there's an apron, and those things start to go up really fast, right? And you know this, the thing about Medicare is, if I'm paying $500 a month and you're paying $201 a month, we're waiting in the same line and we're getting the same level of service. I'm just paying more, right? So what I see is...
So let me tie that up real quick, just so I understand, and the audience.
Yeah.
There is a reality to where if you're over 75, you may likely have to draw money that you don't need.
Correct.
That's
increasing your tax bracket.
It's increasing your tax bracket.
Yep.
And it increases your health care potentially.
Correct. Yeah, it can, depending upon the amount. And people don't plan for this. And the question that I ask people that always gets a laugh is, hey, when in your life have you had too much income? For most people, the answer is never, right? We don't have too much income. And to that is say, all right, when in your life have you thought about your income demands at age 75 or at age 80, right? And then this ties into your world, right? And what I show them is like, listen, we call it your go-go years, your slow-go years, and then your no-go years, right? That first 10 years are your go-go years, right? Hey, I'm still physically able, I'm spending more, we're traveling, we have things we want to do. Then there's the slow-go years, and again, this is what coincides with that required minimum distribution age of, all right, well, I'm not going as much, we're not traveling as much, or we're not as active. What are we truly actually spending money on? And again, I know this as well as the government. That's why they have this required minimum distribution age. And so, again, what I have found is that depending upon how you have saved, you could fall victim to having too much income. And that's why it's funny, because most people in their life don't have too much income, right? So
so what happens if that's a reality? What are some...
So some of the things that we do prior to that, and this is my long-winded way of answering your question, which is the way that I do it, but...
That's how I remember it.
Yeah. The long-winded way of answering your question is, hey, if somebody comes to me at 55, right, and they have historically saved in these pre-tax vehicles, what could we do to start to shift this so you maintain control of your income? Now, most people have heard of Roths or Roth IRAs or Roth 401ks. What people probably haven't heard of is something called a Roth conversion, right, where when you're contributing to a Roth, there's all these limitations, right? There's income limits. If you make too much, you can't. And even if you don't, there's a maximum on how much you can convert every year. And the thing about Roth money is when you take it out for income, it's tax exempt, right? You pay taxes on that money once on the way in. Then all the growth you don't pay taxes on. And when you take that money out, it's all tax exempt. You don't pay income on it. But if there's all these limitations on contributions, then how do you get more money into your Roth? And it's a process called a Roth conversion. And if you have historically saved in these pre-tax vehicles and think that you could fall victim to what we're talking about, these massive required minimum distributions, a Roth conversion is something the sooner you start, the better you're off, because there are no required minimum distributions on Roth. And when you take that money out, it's tax exempt. So now you have to look at it as, hey, if I'm later in life and now I have these medical expenses, right? And because I haven't focused on my health, I have all these medical expenses. If I have to draw from my IRA in order to pay for those, well, every draw, right, all the money I'm taking out to pay for that is all federally taxed. And that could end up raising your tax bracket. And now your Medicare goes up. Whereas again, if you have this tax exempt pot and something from a medical space happens, or you needed some version of assisted living or long-term care, which we're going to get to because those prices are astronomical, Well, now I've got this pot that if I draw on, it's all tax exempt. My Medicare isn't negatively affected. My tax bracket doesn't go up. So again, when I talk about, how I plan for someone in the longevity of their money, it's not just about will I have enough to make it to age 95? Mm-hmm. It's do I have enough of the right type of sources to maintain control of my income and navigate these future expenses, right? So, again, that's my long-winded answer. But again, that's why I focus on that tax element so much. The craziest thing about taxes in the U.S. is our U.S. tax code is over 70,000 pages long. If you were to read 24 hours a day, it would take you 104 days to read the U.S. tax code. It'd probably take you 110. But that's crazy, right?
That's incredible.
But that's not even the craziest part, right? Out of those 70,000 plus pages, only 30 pages tell you how to pay taxes. That's it, right? So the rest of those tell you how to legally pay less, right? And navigate your income. So people always ask me, why do you focus so much on taxes? And the reason being, the rule book is there, right? There's no rule book to the stock market, right? It will forever be variable. It will forever go up and down. That is essentially market risk, right? And we like taking that because it outpaces inflation and all these other things. And we like to see 10% returns and 20% returns. And those are fantastic. In retirement, again, it's not just about the growth of your assets. It's the taxation of your assets. And listen, if I'm going to go play pickleball, I'm probably athletic enough to figure it out. But if I didn't know the rules at all, am I going to be as effective playing it? No. But if I know all of the rules and have never played it before, I'm probably going to have a better chance.
That's why I think people, your world is so valuable. Just like healthcare providers and exercise professionals, it expedites the learning curve for people that I don't know 5% of what you're talking about.
But nobody does.
Nobody does.
Listen, the college courses that I teach, right? There's a waiting list to get into them.
Well, this is why, and we talked about this. This needs to get built in to the education system. Totally different topic.
Yeah.
Financial literacy.
That's podcast number 2.
That's number 2.
Yeah.
But I didn't learn this stuff going to school. When this is real world knowledge.
Well, and here's the thing. You would think, and you probably have the same thought that most of these people do. Hey, you know what? Over the course of my career or working, by the time I'm 60, I'll have this figured out, right? I'm going to learn about it. I have time. And essentially you do. But if you're not seeking this information out, and also the information changes all the time, right? I mean, there's been major legislation that has passed just over the course of the last 5 years that have changed the way that we plan for retirement. So, it's a big part of it. It's ever changing. And, I guess, again, back to the larger point of the sooner you start to educate yourself, whether it's my world or yours, the better off you are.
Well, here's what I'm picking up. There is a real cost to aging. Literally, there's a monetary cost to aging. What you just said, there's that.
Yeah.
And then when I think about what we do, if we can shorten the window, which all the evidence on movement and physical activity and exercise totally supports, if we can shorten the window from what you said, slow go to no go.
Yeah.
Or at least just keep people going at some capacity.
Yeah, even if it's the slow, even if you can extend the slow go part of it, right? Yeah.
And mitigate, medical conditions that cost money down the road.
Yeah.
And independent living or that's a whole other thing that's costly. But if we can shorten the time in life that people spend in those phases, financially, that's a huge win. But then also from a fulfillment and life energy standpoint, that's a massive win.
Yeah, I mean, again, 30 years ago, people planning for retirement, it was vastly different, right? 30, 40 years ago, pensions were far more prevalent. People didn't save, historically in these pre-tax vehicles. It was basically you had a pension and you had your Social Security, right? And again, the cost of living was, inflation is rampant also, right? I mean, I talk about, the taxation of people's Social Security and things like that, right? The fact that they changed the law in 1983 and again in 1993, so that Social Security is now taxed, and the income limits on those are have never adjusted with inflation, right? And so, again, when I go back to taxes and talk about people's income sources, there's so much around not just, there's a million studies that say higher income or, higher net worth ultimately live a longer or healthier life. Like those studies have been done to their blue in the face.
So I know we talked about one study that you read, which I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
What's the correlation if you have more net value, you have a healthier life?
Yeah, and again, it's just access to better care, right? That's number one. But number two, there's been also studies that have been done around not just higher net worth equals better longevity, but also income security, right? Like just understanding, am I going to be secure in my income at that level of life, regardless of what your spend is, or if you're spending millions or spending thousands, right? It's just more about income security, because I don't have to tell you the effect that stress has on the body, right? Yeah. Like, and again, if that's something that you don't have a plan in place, whether it's a physical one or a financial one, again, you're not having a financial plan in place could ultimately affect your physical health because of the level of stress you're experiencing.
Absolutely. And it seems like it's vice versa too.
Yeah.
And this is the stage where people like live again. Like, Max
100%.
He coined it third life.
Yes.
Which I love.
I talk about, the last third.
The last
right?
third, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And again, if you spent 40 years of your life working to get to this last third, the other thing that I focus on, take away the money part of it at all. When I sit down with someone for the first time, one of the main questions I ask them is, what is life without work? What is it? Do you have hobbies? Like the number one answer is always travel, right? Oh, we want to travel more. Okay. Where do you want to go? How often? Do you have a bucket list of places? Like if you tell me you want to travel more, I'm going to financially plan for you to travel more.
Some change work there.
Listen, I learned from the best, right? But that's a huge part of it, because again, the joke I make with people, and anybody that's ever heard me talk, I probably sound like a broken record, but I retire a couple dozen times a year, right? Because of what I do. Most people retire once. And have you actually given, like, if all of your focus has just been on earn, save so that I can someday retire, but never thought about what is life without this 8 to 9 hours a day occupied, right? Like I can take care and hopefully take away all the financial fears and give you all of the math and all of the data and my professional recommendation that you're going to be okay. How do you feel the time? Right? There's no alarm clock going off anymore unless you set one. Are you taking care of your physical health? Right? Is that now becoming a priority? Right? Because if I can answer all the questions on the financial side, what is life? Like, because right now saying I want to travel more is just speculative. There's no plan to that, right? You know what? I finally am going to focus on my health. Okay. What does that mean? Right? Like when I write my goals, and I know you do this the same way, I visualize exactly, right? Hey, what does it look like? Hey, if you wanted to buy, in retirement, hey, you know what? We want to be able to buy a second home, right? In a warmer climate. We want a snowbird. Who doesn't, right? Yeah. Okay, where do you want to be? What type of place do you want? What does it look like? Is it on the water? Is it on you have to visualize that, right? So
you take them through a visioning process.
Yeah, you have to make it real. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just out in the ether. It's just a plan that could never possibly happen. It's just pure speculation.
A lot of people come in with a clear picture of what that looks like, or are you walking?
Very few.
Very few. Yeah.
Very few. I'm probably more shocked when people come in and say, I am really big into philanthropy. I work with this charity. I have a daughter that lives here. I'm a big part of being a grandma or a grandpa. I take care of this. Like that is far less frequent than people that are that have no idea. Yeah. That are just like, I'll figure it out. Like, well, will you? Because what ends up happening is, I can't tell you how many people have been like, I'm just bored. I think I'm going to go back to work. And I'm like, okay, you can. Like, we've established that that's a want, not a need, right? You don't need to. But you have to spend time focusing on that, right? I love that.
We do with members that start up with us here. Chris and Ann, they're health coaches. They take them through a wellness vision, which is exactly what you just said, but on the health and wellness side.
Yeah.
Of why does this matter? What are you doing? And paint that picture. Well, rarely do you ever hear from people or talk to people about what the financial wellness vision looks like.
Well, and in your world, right? If someone says, I want to get in better shape, what does that mean?
Yeah.
There's no clarity to that, right? Hey, I want to travel more. Where? Have you actually thought about it? Have you looked at flights? Do you know the day that you want to go? Do you know how long you want to be there? Are you going to bounce around? Are you going to stay at one hotel? Are you a resort person? Are you an activities person? Like, these are the things. It's the same thing in your world, right?
Yeah.
Getting in better shape is not a goal. Like, it can be. It's just pure speculation.
It's part of the process. But when you anchor it to something that really matters, like I want to be there to put my grandson on my shoulders when I walk.
Anchoring it in something.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's again, even in this conversation, I'm still, I knew our worlds overlapped. It's just our messaging is so similar, and it's just in two completely different facets. And again, like I said, they overlap so much. But
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna be mindful of time here. Make sure. I don't know. I can get. I'll be here for hours. You have to edit this way down. I don't even know if I went off the agenda at all.
Yeah.
No, I think we covered everything. I think. Well, let me ask this question. So people that you'll work with, you paint this vision of what it looks like, and now it's clear, and they're energized about it, and maybe they've never even realized it. So now that that's there, then the working backwards starts. So there's what's that process look like with them?
Yeah. So again, I don't like making this all about me. I'm here to talk about you guys, but my process is one of sitting down with someone the first time, because again, if they'd heard me, from teaching a class or one of the many public speaking events that I do, I can't give anyone personal advice at those, right? And the reason being is I don't have someone's personal information, right? I don't know your personal situation. Same thing if you were to go and talk to a big group. You can't tell someone that they need to work out 5 days a week and that they need to focus on diet. You don't know their personal situation. You don't know their goals. You don't know anything about them. So sitting down with somebody the first time is about gathering information, right? And that's where those hard-hitting questions, like when I say, hey, all right, what is life without work? Like, and don't get me wrong, of course we talk about numbers. I'm a financial advisor, but that's only part of it, right? If someone's still working, what's your anticipated retirement date? When would you like to retire? What is going into that decision? Is it a numbers based? Like, hey, if I tell you could retire tomorrow, you want to retire tomorrow? Or is it situational? Hey, you know what? I still have, one last kid that's finishing college. I want to work until then. Okay, great, right? And I base gathering that information around that initial picture, right? Hey, I want to retire it now. Or if they're already retired, okay, what are your income demands? How are we structuring it? Are you taking income in the most tax efficient way, right? That's kind of that first meeting. It's just them getting to know me on a personal level and me understanding their situation better. Then after gathering all that information, we schedule a second meeting, and then it's about me figuring out, can I help, right? So I am lucky enough to be at a point in my career already that if I never took another client on, I would be fine, right? Like there's no like non-cocky way to say that, right? I don't know how to come off and say that. So
you're living a reality that you're helping people.
Correct. So but that's where it ties in. So if I didn't need to take anyone else on as a client, why do I, right? And so what it comes down to is I have 3 rules on if I take a new client on, right? And this goes into my process of evaluating. The first is, can I help, right? And after learning about you and gathering all the information, the next meeting is about, can I help, right? And what does that help look like, right? I put together an entire income plan. We talk about your tax strategy for your income plan. Then we talk about, all right, now how do my investments need to match my tax strategy and match my income plan for the next 30, 35 years? And there's going to be adjustments over time, obviously. So then the second meeting is about me presenting, can I help? And here's how I would help. So that's rule number 1. If I can help, that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 on if I take you on as a client is, do you want my help? Because I could put together the perfect plan, the perfect situation, answer all your questions. If you don't want my help, okay, like I'm not for everybody. And just like this place isn't for everybody. And that's okay. And I know you and I struggle with that because we want to help as many people as we possibly can. And those are the ones that keep us up at night. The ones where someone came in, you had a conversation with them, and you knew you could help them. You knew there was something that you could do. You knew that there was an issue that they were facing. They don't want it.
Just not ready.
Maybe the timing, maybe it's a personality fit, right? Like, I get it. I'm not for everybody on a personality level, and that's okay too, right? So rule number 1, can I help? Rule number 2, do you want my help? Rule number 3, because I'm not an advisor that's going to just meet you once a year and tell you your returns. I meet with my clients quarterly, right? At this phase of life, there was so much happening. There's so much happening over the course of 3 weeks, let alone 3 months, right? So I meet with my clients quarterly. So the last rule is, do we enjoy each other's company when we are sitting in a room together? Because I've had clients where, number 1, can I help? Number 2, they want my help, match up. But life is short, right? I don't want you to be at a point where you're like, ugh, I got to go see Adam today. Like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
And, when I'm walking into a room to sit down with you, I don't want to be like, oh, geez, they don't listen to me. They're not doing anything that I say. They're making the situation worse. Like, I don't want that on my end either, right? So I've had people that, number 1 and number 2 are met, but we're just not the right fit, right? So those are my 3 rules, right? And they've served me well up to this point in my career, and I'm not going to change them. Right?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think a big part of, helping people get to a desired outcome is the intrinsic motivation behind it, both parties. That's it. Like when you said that the people that keep you up at night, there's 3 people that I met with 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That totally, we could transform their life. But right now, their level of intrinsic motivation or their readiness to change, it is just not there. And that's tough. But at the same time, we cannot control people's behaviors.
Yeah, and you probably deal with this a little bit too, whereas, what you guys do is vastly different than so many other places. 100%. Right. And so people might say, hey, listen, I'm comfortable with my, my X membership, or I just show up and there isn't anybody working with me and anything else. And so there's a comfort level with that. Same thing in my world. I've been with my advisor for 15 years. I think they've done right by me. And, I'm not there to besmirch or say that they're doing anything wrong. I'm there to show them a different way.
Right.
Hey, you know what? During the last 15 years of your accumulation phase or anything else, they served you well. But we're flipping the page.
Exactly.
You're in a new phase of life.
Yeah. And also too, there's no desired or shared stated outcome.
No.
Like for fitness,
yeah,
it is go do episodic kind of shotgun movement exercise. Yep. Not a bad thing. You're better off doing that than nothing. Or in your case, there's hey, here's some money. Send me the returns. There's really no plan it's going towards. I'm
just focused on growth. Like, hey, if you can beat the S&P 500 every year, or if you can get close to that, great. And again, when you're 30 or 40 or even in the early 50s, right? And your IRA and your 401k, you can't even touch it till you're 59 and a half without penalty. Like, okay, that should be your focus. But we're now entering the final third.
Yeah.
Right? It is a very difficult mental shift that needs to happen to get away from doing what you've always done. Right? And so that comes from investments, that comes from structuring your income, that comes from the focus on just not growth, right? If the first 40 years of your life has been about growth and accumulation, don't get me wrong, growth in your assets is always important. But if the accumulation part isn't there anymore, meaning we're not putting in, we're taking out, well, now it's growth with an associative income and tax plan. And for some people to say, well, why would I give up some growth? And I'm like, because this is
this is where you have to sit across the table from them.
And I'm just saying, okay, let me ask you this question. If your previous advisor got you 16% last year, right? Hey, he matched the S&P. The S&P did 16% last year. And I got you 12, but I saved you 10% in taxes. Who did their job better? Right? Like, that's where the shift needs to happen. And it's the same thing in your world. Hey, if you continue to do what you've always done, and you have these goals in place but have never hit them, why would you continue to do that? That's a definition of insanity, right? So why wouldn't you try something else? And there's always going to be, listen, what we do, we don't do for free, right? And there's always going to be that element of it. And sometimes that's a hurdle you just can't get over. Hey, what I charge or what you charge, again, maybe it's timing, maybe it's just, I have the money, but I don't want to spend it on that. That's okay too, right? Again, can I help? Do you want my help? And the do you want my help part falls into how you and I are financially compensated for what we do, right? That goes into that decision.
Sure.
So
yeah, I think money or profit that is in the business that we're in, it just fuels more people that we can influence and we can impact.
Yeah, but again, that's why I've also never charged anyone ever to sit down with me, right? There's people like when you do a consult, you're not charging someone for a consult, at least unless things have changed.
No.
Right?
Nope.
So on that end, like for me to figure out if I can help, I don't want a paywall in front of that. Right? Like I need you to come in, I need to have a conversation with you, which is why to this day I've never charged anyone to sit down with me. Right? I mean, I know advisors that have minimums or they'll charge a fee to put a plan together for you. And I'm like, why? You don't know if you can help this person yet.
Right.
Like, why would you do that? You're limiting your access to helping people.
Right.
And if you focus on that as the goal is genuinely to help people, you're going to come across people that don't want your help yet, or you can't help, or whatever it is. But if you still just focus on that, I think you're doing your best to serve.
So for the people that are listening and watching, and they're like, "Hey, I want to sit down with you, dude, because I got some things I got to talk about." They're on rule number 2 right now. How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah. So easiest way.
Did an email?
My email address. Yeah, you can always reach out to that. It's Team Spears. So like that makes sure it goes to my whole team.
Were you a professional athlete?
Hey, we do work with University of Michigan. We are the official wealth management partners for
wow, the natty chance now.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's Team Spears at foguthfinancial.com. So that's FOGUTH financial.com.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, that's fine. And again, you can always go to our website, foguthfinancial.com. If you call the office and say that you do want to sit down with me, anyone, because we have 15 or 16 offices at this point. I run our Plymouth office. We do have an office in Ann Arbor. I have clients there just because I live in Dexter, proximity of being here, so I have clients in our Ann Arbor office. I do run our Plymouth office, but we have an Ann Arbor office that's right on Stadium, and but any of the office managers at any one of our locations, they all have my calendar. So if it's something where you do want to sit down and have a conversation, again, figuring out that first part, if there's questions that, even if you have a financial advisor and there's like questions like, I feel like I ask them this all the time and I never get a straight answer. Like I said, I've given thousands of second opinions, right? Like that's part of it too. But yeah, again, I don't really want this to be about me.
No, I know. Well, this is one of the first times we've had other professionals on here in the the health wellness space, not so much the financial wellness space, and it's a part of the wellness wheel.
Sure.
So like, well-being is beyond just staying physically fit. Like this is a big part of it, and it's more intertwined than I think people realize, particularly in that third phase of life. Like they matter tremendously. So if there's someone like you that could provide some support to people that need it. And maybe
someone's calling us right now.
We're a live call stream, you guys. You didn't realize that. But no, we're just looking to provide access to you.
Yeah.
So.
No, and that's fair. And me and you and I have talked about the same thing and I didn't realize how much our worlds overlap. And I've already started to talk to my client base that, people that have said, I've started to focus on my health more than I'm retired. And I'm like, hey, listen, if if you don't know how to get started, I got a place for someone that you can talk to, right?
100%. Listen, third life, you got to be able to actually do it if you got the funding, and if you got the physical ability, you don't got the funding, you're missing out. So both need to exist.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you coming on, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's been great. I feel like I didn't tease you enough during the podcast, but we'll get to that after.
We'll cut that out.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, bud.
And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for sticking around, watching, learning. If you extracted some value, please share this with your friends and family. You can also click the subscribe link. I believe if you're on the Spotifys and Apples and you're listening to this, there's a subscribe link at the bottom of the episode. If you're watching on YouTube, bottom right of this video, you can click subscribe to stay up to date on the latest episodes. Thank you again for joining us on this episode. And with that being said, be well, stay connected, and take care of your health.